Now today, I'm going to talk about each of these criteria in terms of one of the most traditional academic sources, books. And I'm going to talk about how we should think about these 4 factors when we look at a book. So, here are some books. I got all of these books from the MEF University Library, and they are all good books in their own way. But I want to talk to you about the issues of depth, reliability, accuracy, and currency with each of these books. So, let's take the oldest one first, Thucydides. Thucydides was a Greek historian about 2,400 years ago. So we're talking like 400 BCE. Now, of course, if you look in this book, it will tell you that the book was published in 1972. Well, that's true. This book was published in 1972. But if you look closer at the title page, see the title page? You'll see that while this book was published in 1972, it was actually translated in 1954. But actually, the words in this book are from 2,400 years ago. So, is this current? Not at all. But it's deep, it's reliable, and it's accurate. And in fact, it doesn't matter that it's from 2,400 years ago, because this is the best work of history on these events. Every single work of history you read about the war between Athens and Sparta came directly from this book, because it is the only book about this time. And Thucydides was an eyewitness. He saw these events. He was an Athenian general, and he worked very hard to write an accurate and reliable book about the events. Okay, let's take Nietzsche. Nietzsche, 19th century German philosopher. Now, again, if you look on the title page of this book, you will see that it was published in 1997. But of course, this book was written originally, like if I remember correctly, something like 1887. So, this book is old. It's obviously not current. And also, we can't really ask questions about how reliable or how accurate it is, because this is a work of philosophy. So, when using this book, you are not going to say, I know this is true because Nietzsche said it. You are rather going to be analyzing a philosophical argument. Okay, the Middle East. It's got this wonderful map. This book was published in 1943. It's about the Middle East. Now, this book is obviously not current. I have no idea about the author, whether he was a reliable author or not, but let's just assume he was. And probably the information in here is accurate. And it's probably pretty deep. But basically, this book is more or less useless to us because it is not current. Since 1943, a lot has happened in the Middle East. I mean, even if you read a book written about the Middle East published in 2010, think about how much has happened since then. So the currency of this book makes it basically unusable for us. The only use that you might have for this book is to look at how people in the 1940s thought about the Middle East. But it won't help you understand the Middle East today at all. Okay, Guns, Germs, and Steel. A wonderful book written by a professor of anthropology and archaeology. This book was published in 1997 But I believe it was actually written earlier than that, and definitely the research that the book is based off of was written in the 1970s. But this book is still very current, even though it's getting a little old now. The ideas and the information are still being talked about today. So just because it's a little bit old doesn't mean that it's not still current, deep, reliable, and a downright fascinating book. I really suggest you read it. It's so interesting. Okay, finally, we have Developing Hybrid Applications for the iPhone. I have never read this book. I don't know. Looks like a good book. It looks reliable. Yeah, it's not a huge book, but it looks pretty deep. I mean, it's about iPhones. But there's a big problem with this book. If you check the date, it was published in 2009. 2009, that was less than 8 years ago. But remember, this is about software for iPhones. Think about how much technology has changed in 8 years, just when you get to mobile applications. So I'm not saying that this book is useless. In fact, probably the core ideas are still very relevant. But it is definitely no longer current when you think about how many changes there have been in mobile technology. One quick correction. I talk a couple times about the title page where you can find a book's publication date. I was using the wrong term there. It's not a title page, it's a copyright page. So, same idea, it's still an important page, but it's called the copyright page.